Mike Kuzic. Steve Kozik.
Vinny Cannadella.
Thank you. Amendments to the agenda.
I have one.
Yep.
If we look to the policy section, it has listed that we are doing a first read of these 6 policies. And in fact, we did the first read last meeting, so this is the second read. We need to change that.
Thank you very much. Any other amendments to the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion carries.
Was there, was that a motion that Nicole made?
No, I didn't know if you.
Okay.
If you,
I
if
just
you're
didn't know
making an
who was the
amendment,
second.
we've never really had one, so I don't know. We just voted on it anyway. So.
I just didn't know who the second was, so.
Well, I didn't really have a.
Yeah,
Because it was in the,
Got it.
next time I'll do an amendment.
That's
I'll do
okay.
it. Informational items. I don't believe we have any. Dr. Miller, is that correct? Okay, moving on. Our board minutes from our January 10th meeting.
Motion to approve the January 10th Board of Education meeting minutes.
Any corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Audience of citizens, would anybody like to address the board? All good? Hearing none, we can move on. Mike, any board correspondence or communication?
None at this time.
Okay, fantastic. And moving on to OMS and OHS mid-year reports. Start with OMS, please. Sylvia and Ellen, nice to see you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I just said to Anthony, are you guys sick of seeing us? Because we've been at the last
Never.
few meetings. I hope our presence is still welcome.
Yes, of course. And I do would like to ask you how you'd like to do this. Do you want to go through the whole thing? I have a couple of questions. Or do you want me, when you get to that part, do you want me to, what would you feel more comfortable with?
It's up to you.
It's not nothing major, but
Okay, it's up to you how you want. It's really how you guys feel most comfortable. If you want us to go through and then at each point, if you have a question, or if you want to wait until we get to the end, it's up to you.
I find it easier to do it as we go along, then we're there, and then if someone has a question, you can just kind of put your hand up and you can ask the question and we can move on instead of going back.
Sure, we'll go each part. We'll stop and we'll
Yeah,
see
or
what you
if
have.
If somebody here has a question on a part that you're talking about, then we'll just,
Okay.
all right. I
Sounds
just didn't
good.
want to throw you off your game.
Okay, no,
you.
that's fine. So Ellen and I are here to give you our mid-year update. Really, I thought that when it comes to what's going well, our newspaper club really encapsulated the first half of the year. And when Ms. Wache sent it to me for approval, I looked through it and I said, wow, we have done a lot in the first half of the year. And it was great to see all that we've done and that we celebrated. And we even have, laminated copies of the newspaper in the cafeteria for kids to see. And we have one up on, it was Ellen's idea, which I thought was great. We have it up if parents come to pick up their students early, and while they're waiting, they can take a look at it and read it. But, we had some great highlights, and the first half of the year was packed in, capturing all from our new hires. It seems like they've been here forever, but really it was just September, and to all of our spirit activities. And we're looking towards the second half of the year with the same enthusiasm for what we can do and activities we can have. So we're really excited. And I mentioned it here a few times, but our first career day with students. So on February 17th, we're having a career day. Mrs. Fenn, our school counselor, has organized it, and she has about 15 parents/community members who volunteered to come in and speak about the careers that they're involved in. And we're going to have our 8th graders take part, as they're the ones, we're going to start with our 8th graders as they're the ones moving into figuring out their pathways. And then we're hoping next year to have all 3 grades involved. Logistically, with 15 presenters. We are figuring out a good way for our eighth graders to see all different kinds of pathways. And then I'm really happy to also announce that we have, someone that has stepped in and stepped up to do our OMS musical, which I'm really excited about. We have all the steps and movements in gear, and waiting on some finalized things, but rights to the show, we can't name what it is yet, but I'm really looking forward to that. It'll happen on the high school stage and it'll be like a proper production. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I do have just a comment about your career day. And when I was reading this, I would just ask that, maybe if you told the board members, maybe some of the board members could share their careers.
Yeah, I mean, and you still can.
No, I
You
know.
still-
I think the 17th is, I'm thinking of a certain Victor who loves to, help, go in. It's just a way for us to then go in and, be
Is a
with the
certain
kids and
Victor open on February 17th? From 8 to 10:30? If he checks his calendar, and maybe gets back to me.
Oh, you're going?
Okay, and get back to
I didn't mean put you on
us.
the spot, but I'm just saying.
Okay, and Nicole is joining us too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Mhm.
But I do know that, aside from all of this stuff, we do like to, we go to things and participate with something
Yeah.
like that would be a way for us to, just kind of be known instead of just. So,
Of course, of course. Oh, you happen to be open that day? Okay, we'll send you an email with the details, okay? And then we'll say, if anyone else is interested, we'll send an email to see if any of the rest of you would like to join us.
Do you have dates for the musical?
So we have tentative dates, April 21st and April 22nd and at the high school.
Thank you.
And so, with all of those areas of what's going well, we do have to acknowledge there are definitely areas of growth and that we're working on and we continue to work on. You know all about our schedule woes, so I won't go into that. And we're hoping the new schedule will alleviate that. We do continue to see an uptick of students in crisis, and I want to be honest with you. It's tough. It's not our whole student body. It's a pocket of our student body, but we are really working with students that are facing some tough things in their life, and we're trying to have a whole team approach to that with our student support team, but it does weigh heavily in these current months. We also, going hand in hand with that is we've brought our chronic absenteeism rates down, but we do still have pockets of specific family and school avoidance issues that we're working on. And the last two are around data and really the full capabilities of iReady. We continue need to work on how to best use student data to inform instructional practices and how to leverage all of the pieces of iReady to make it really work for us in the best ways to improve student growth and achievement. Okay, so part 2 is our progress towards our goals, and it's self-explanatory in the ways that we are using different avenues to reach our own school goals. One of the areas is with iReady. We're actually administering our second diagnostic this week. Students began today with the reading diagnostic day 1. And so we will then compare the fall and winter benchmarks. But the data I can share with you, and that was on the subsequent page, is all students are expected to spend around 30 minutes each week in both reading and math in their personalized pathway. On average, a lesson takes a student like between 20 to 40 minutes to complete. So that's why you'll see on the subsequent page, we took the month of December and year to date. So, we keep working. A majority of our students are doing the right thing every week, about 30 minutes, passing their lessons. But we keep working with students on the relevance of why, the students that are resistant. We keep talking to them about if they build their individual skills, it'll help them in the long run and make them stronger academically. So if they work on their own individual skills, they'll see that growth and achievement. So we also notice that informational reading is an area of growth and geometry and algebraic thinking. So we're trying to really work on ways from the data we see from iReady, and also you'll notice when I talk a little bit later about the SBAC interim assessments, ways that we can incorporate things like informational reading into the daily work that students do. Okay, so in the PD we're getting on iReady, it's in-house PD. Our math coaches gave us the last PD on January 13th, and it was great because it gave us 2 new reports that we hadn't really worked in depth. And now we can use those reports, the prerequisite report and the scaffolding report, to really help move our students forward in their learning in iReady. Yeah.
So 342 students, of which 70 to 100% of them passed.
Right. So the pie chart is, it takes last month of the December and the year to date, and it's the lessons passed. So if you look, so 292 students, they got a 70 to a 100 of passing rate, 71 students, 50 to 69, and 25 students, 0 to 49%. Yeah. And you'll see our, our pass rate for the month and then our pass rate for the year to date.
If kids don't, if they're in the 0 to 49, do they keep getting the same type of questions until they pass, or does it just move on?
No, they do keep getting the same type of questions. And if they consistently don't pass it, the domain gets turned off by iReady. And what that tells the teacher is that the reason why iReady turns the domain off is because it's saying this isn't working for this student. They need more individualized teacher intervention to really hone in on this skill.
So that would be some, do the teachers, the interventionists, the surveys, and the tutors, do they all have access to the students iReady?
Yes.
Is that part of PowerSchool? Like, do they go on to PowerSchool?
No, they have their own
Okay.
login
So
to
somebody could-
iReady.
So somebody can follow their students and say,
Yes.
obviously this kid is struggling. Okay.
Yes.
So what is a sample like the 24 report? What is the baseline of the intervention? Someone who's looking at data, what do they actually do next?
Repeat the first part.
So for the 24 students that had 0 to 49%, who's getting notified and what's the process afterwards?
Right. So the math interventionist looks at this weekly, and you have to disaggregate whether or not the student, was it an effort issue in terms of they didn't pass it because they didn't put the effort forward, or was it a skill issue? And some of what we're seeing is of our students that are even in algebra, right? They might be on their personalized pathway and they could be facing something on quadratic equations that that their teacher isn't currently on. And so the lesson's too difficult for them, and that's why they're not passing. So you have to get to the root of why the students aren't passing. And then you do sort of that pronged approach of, are they already in Serbi? You talk to the teacher about what they see as how long did the student spend on the lesson, and then you go from there. And it's one piece of the puzzle as well with the work that we're doing. So I hit on some of the progress towards our school and district goals, but we're happy to report that, in terms of chronic absenteeism, it's a positive trend from last year. In terms of the number of students that have 9 or plus absences, we'd like to get the number down, but we are being diligent about holding parent meetings, sending out robocalls, sending out letters every week that update parents on absences, and working with key families to really provide individualized services and to work with the families about how best to get their student in school most consistently. We already talked about iReady. In terms of SBAC, we're really leveraging the SBAC interim assessments and what the interim assessments are. They're these small mini lessons for teachers to give to their students to see where they stand in relevance to the standards that will be asked of them on the SBAC. Just had a 6th grade ELA teacher send me, hey, of my, 68 kids, 57 of them they're at proficient. This is great, to tell when they were doing an SBAC interim on narrative. I think it was narrative techniques, and they had just finished the narrative unit. So it's a great dipstick benchmark for teachers to use when looking at how our students are doing against the standards. And then about the schedule, and our SRBI committee is implementing the priorities. Let's see. Oh, right now our mid-year goal meetings are underway. It's a really great time for Ellen and I to sit one-on-one with each teacher that we supervise and to have good conversations about the status of their goals and really how the year is progressing for them and what they're doing in terms of our school goals and their individual goals.
Sylvia,
Mhm.
I have a question, maybe going back a little bit on Survey. You mentioned that there's a new Survey process. You might have told us what that is, but do you mean because we now have Survey identified people, or?
Well, I think because the district wrote a new policy, wrote a new handbook, and
Okay.
there's a Survey district-wide committee now that our Survey people go to. And there's like a real consistency around the policies and the practices that was what we needed to do to get Survey to the next level in the
And who's
district.
leading that? Who leads the Survey district-wide?
Basically, it's run by Sylvia and Megan and co-chair it.
Sylvia?
Oh, not me. Yeah,
Oh,
I was gonna
okay.
say, not me. I chair the
I
school
got
one, but
enough.
not, but not that one. Right.
Okay. So, I mean, I'd love to hear more about that. And the other, in your Survey numbers, there are kids who, obviously Survey is 6 to 8 weeks, and then they either have progressed, they go to another level, whatever. But those kids that are not SPED level, but they're not progressing necessarily in Survey. I mean, I think that was one of the problems that we had in Survey years ago, is that kids were in Survey for 2 years. So with this new process, are you able to kind of identify, because it's not as cut and dry as you're either a regular ed student or you're a special ed student. You can still be struggling in something. So
Mhm.
is that where the tutors, and maybe piggybacking on what Steve was saying, is that where the interventionists and the tutors come in, or are interventionist tutors and Survey separate?
So we don't have tutors in our building. We only have our 2 interventionists. We have our reading and we have our math interventionists, but they're very key. This is the first year we have 2 people certified in those specific areas doing the work. So we see a difference with that. Last year we had the reading with Mrs. Tartaglia, and this year we have the math with Mr. DeZekin. So we see a level of understanding of the skills and concepts, and especially in math, that we hadn't had before. So he's able to really drill down to, again, what's the root cause of this? What's happening? Is it a big gap of skill deficit, or is it just a pocket? And so he's able to do some dipstick sort of assessments to understand whether or not the student should be in Survey in tier 2 or tier 3, or it should be a classroom intervention in tier 1. They just had a meeting on a student that was complicated in Survey, but and has real skill deficit, but doing okay in class on the current content, just has some gaps in previous learning. And so, what should that look like? And so what's nice is that when problems of practice are arising, we're talking about them, and we're really looking at all angles of the complicated cases together.
Okay,
And
thank you.
one of the elements in the SRBI I know that we worked on at Power School this summer was saying that this particular student is in tier 2 for this particular skill. At the end of those 8 weeks, that student might have graduated from that skill, but they need to stay in SRBI for another skill that they need to work on. So it might appear
Oh, I think I remember you
that
saying
they're
that.
in tier 2 for more than an 8-week period, because they are getting
Different
something that- And some of those students, okay, they're done and they're ready to go back and graduate, or that's what they need to go to tier 2 specification. So there's granular pieces to it. You don't always see just.
Right,
that raw
right.
number.
And it sounds like you're keeping much more data and progress monitoring, because it was just a.
All in.
And it's all in Power School now.
Okay.
Credit to IT, Tim and Alex, who work with Dave.
Thank you, Alex.
the data system to allow us to see that. report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We are, we're working on instructional rounds. And then if I just look, we already talked about career day. And, one thing that I'm really happy about, and that's close to my heart, is obviously cultivating a culture of literacy. And it just happened today. Every Tuesday, I meet with a group of students in a lunch bunch book club, and it's the highlight of my week, sitting with them and just talking about the book. Especially, I have to give a shout out to my 7th grade book club. Those students come every week, so excited to talk about the book with such enthusiasm, and they the entire time we talk about predictions, and they're just using all the skills, and it's just such a fun environment with them. So, and then the last thing is we're really working on promoting kindness and positivity. In middle school, it's a tough time, the tendency to not be kind is sometimes seen as cooler. And so we're really looking at ways to promote that. We recognized 10 students so far, once a week for our hometown hero. We have a big mural that Mrs. Gibbons created for us, and it's swimming in a sea of positivity, and the kids who get hometown hero, their little faces are in boats but it's just a way for us to recognize we see you doing good, and we want to recognize it and promote it. So as far as the strategic operating plan, we're really on mark with what the district is looking for OMS to be doing. We still have some work to do with the attribute of the graduate rubrics, and we're getting there. Our feedback systems, we are doing it. Our school counselor is doing such great work being in the classroom. When it comes to electives and looking at what kids are interested in, we had a new art club this year, investment club. And I think I've told you, Mrs. Gibbons is doing the art club. We had to divide it into separate weeks because there was such a student response. We're over 65 students who wanted to be involved, that we have 6th grade in 1 week and then 7th and 8th grade in another week. And then, Ellen and I, our doors are always open. We have an open door policy. Teachers know, and staff and everyone, even students. Yeah, they know they can come see us. So, and then the last is about our SRBI update that we had just spoken about. And, the last thing is our student count, which is interesting. We began the year at 410. And we're now at 405, but we have 3 new registrations, which is going to bring us to 408. And just something interesting, of the 5 students that have withdrawn since the beginning of the year, 2 withdrew to be homeschooled, and 3 were brand new to our district this fall and withdrew within 3 or 4 months for various reasons. So it's just an interesting trend that we saw with our school year, but we're going to be back up to 408 because we have these 3 new enrollments that are pending right now. So, any other questions that we can answer for you?
Let me check my notes.
Okay.
Well, the first thing on my notes, and I said it to you personally, and I said I was going to say it publicly as well, that I loved the press, the newspaper thing you call the OMS press. I loved seeing the pictures, and when you see it all at once, and you see the smiling kids and the staff that's participating, and even though they're dressing goofy, I mean, middle school, it's a place in my heart for middle school too. So nice job on that, and I just wanted to give you kudos for that. And then I think, and then I just had one other question. And this could be for Robert or whatever, but there's a graduation in your student activity. What's it called? Account.
Oh,
Thank you. This is my right hand man here. You have a graduation line item, but I thought we had a graduation line item in the budget.
We do.
So that is the student activity one. I had found out last year when I did my first graduation, that's for all of the, it's almost like a plus and minus. We have to buy the principal's awards, and those gift cards come out of there. And then any of the gifts that we give to kids from other people, like the money gets deposited there, and then the check gets written right back out to the kids. right? So there's money from different people for awards that we give to kids at the end of the year from the community.
Okay.
That comes out, it's like an in and out kind
So
of.
they don't write a check to the student, they write it to the school.
Mhm.
Right.
But why is it in a negative?
Yeah, so it's
Because we didn't have the money for the principals awards, so it had to go into the negative. So we'll have to transfer from like the admin account to that account to
But
make
there's-
it go
there's-
back to neutral.
There's also the account of from the picture money. I mean, I thought that, and I don't know. how
Right,
much
that goes into the admin, that's the admin account that you
Okay,
see
So
in,
why wouldn't you just take, if you're giving admin awards, why wouldn't you just take it from there?
right, and that
I-
makes sense. And I spoke to Anthony a lot about this and he helped me understand. And because he knows, and we cleaned up a lot. He helped me clean up a lot of the accounts because there were so many accounts there and I was like, what is this even for? And so he helped me collapse a lot of those accounts. So technically, I mean, the graduation could get collapsed. The only thing I'm worried about is the fact that all the awards we give to kids, they give us the money, Linda deposits in that account, then we write the check right there. So the money comes
So
in
maybe
and
you could
out.
just have a different name instead of graduation. Maybe it could be, you
Awards.
know, award.
Yeah, we can change it
awards or
to
something like
awards.
that. Then it would just, because that's what then just confuses us, because now that we're going through budget season, I mean, we budget enough for graduation and so.
Right. Okay, so
So-
we'll change that to
Maybe you could just change it,
awards.
or even graduation in and out. You could just make it really simple. If that's
And
what
write
you're doing.
that.
I'd like it to say awards, because then I'll remember that it's for the
Okay,
awards.
so
If
awards,
it says graduation, I'll
Yeah,
ask
it
the
makes
same
sense.
question next year.
we can change that to awards.
Thank you.
Any way that we can make the connected budget descriptive as possible.
Yeah.
Right, and we've been trying to do that, we still have that ballroom dancing one on there, but I can't, there's some weird thing, I think, that I have to keep it in there for a while longer.
All right, those are all my questions. Go ahead, Mike.
I have a question on field trips.
Mhm.
I know in the past, they used to do DC trips. And the last one got canceled because of COVID and it has never really picked back up. Do you know, like, are we planning on, because I mean, it's been a while since COVID has ravished the schools. Are we gonna start having more field trips, grade level trips, any of that, you know?
So we do have grade level trips. Our eighth graders just went to New York City to the 9/11 museum in December. Sixth and seventh grade will have spring trips. We'll have Holiday Hill for our eighth graders for their picnic. Yeah, so we have been doing that. As far as Washington DC, we haven't picked it up yet, but we can send. When you start that, it has to be, at the very beginning of September. So, and my principals group has been talking about that, and a couple of districts have picked it back up, but many haven't. But we can talk, starting in September, gauge the families and see who's comfortable, and we can definitely see what the interest is to bring that back.
Great, just to get
Yeah.
back to normalcy.
Yeah. No, they had a great
traditions.
time in New York when they went to the 9/11
Yeah.
museum. Mhm. Oh, Ellen went, yes.
Anybody? Were you done, Mike? Steve?
Yeah, just last question. There's a lot of good district goals for your and next steps. You just said it a lot. What do you think is the biggest headwind right now? Like, what do you worry about coming into 4 months left?
Oh, gosh, 4 months?
So.
There's 4 months
That's a good
left.
So of
question.
course, I'm worried about test scores. I mean, I'm worried about student well-being. I'm worried about growth and achievement in other ways. And I'm worried about really having good citizens in our schools. I'm not worried that we don't. I'm
Right.
worried about how can we keep helping them and capitalizing on them being good citizens.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a daily
Right.
thing.
Yes.
But I like the fact that you try different things and, I mean, rewarding positive behavior is one thing. Sometimes that will promote somebody else to say, wow, I want to be recognized, but you're always going to have, the harder cases, but middle school is exciting, but it's tough too. Was that it, Steve?
Yeah.
Anybody else for Sylvia and Ellen?
No.
And you're welcome that you're getting
Vic now, so you
Oh.
can thank me, you can thank me for that.
All right. I'm not even sure if you heard you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Dr. Miller texted me that I have 3 minutes.
Not true. Not true.
10 minutes? We'd love to hear.
Is this
from
good?
everybody.
Okay.
Is this homework?
I was fooling around this afternoon, of course, after the kids were gone, but trying to put together something to just give you a context or a lens through which everything on the update goes through. So I wanted to share this with you. So Steph, thanks for passing that out. Basically, the work that Stephanie and I are doing at the high school is to bring everybody, the kids, the teachers, and our families on board for really a dynamic change over the next several years. And I think I mentioned to this group before that all the work that really we do falls into 3 major categories as an administrator. The management piece of the building, instructional leadership, and our communications or public relations. In public relations, people might scoff at, but the idea is that we can't be leaders if people don't want to follow us. So what we want to do is to communicate to people why we're doing things, what our vision is for where we would like to end. And it's not a mystery novel. We want people to understand. So when we have a faculty meeting, we talk about why we're doing this. When we do our weekly communication to families, we try to explain why we're doing this. But everything that we do is centered around student learning. All right, so every decision we make, everything we want to bring forth in the budget, or when we make decisions on a daily basis for individual kid cases or whatever, it's all wrapped up in the idea that we want to do this to make student learning better at the school. And within, I guess, where this all takes place is in our school culture. And that's one of the major drivers. We talk about what we're doing well. We want to move the culture forward to be student-centered. And there really is a symbiotic relationship between the management, instructional leadership, and the public relations and our culture. In other words, these things influence our school culture, and they are also reflective of that overall culture. So this is sort of the lens upon which you can look at this report that I put together for you. Just going to hit some highlights. Overall, what we're doing well from an administrative perspective. We are in the midst of an organizational change. Everything we do is going to be based on what's best for our student learning. And this is the difficult part. We want to make sure that everyone understands that, not just us, but the teachers, the parents, and the kids. And that's important. And it takes time to make that change. We talk about making a more positive school environment for the staff, because that's going to be reflective in what they do with the kids. We have good people. There used to be a commercial that said, great cheese comes from happy cows. So we want a lot of happy mooing at this high school. I know we're the Wolverines, but that's important. The kids be happy, the staff be happy, we're happy. And that we get that it doesn't happen all the time for everybody. But that's reflective in our culture. The other piece is for this year specifically is the management piece. And I might have mentioned this to this group in the past. The teachers are doing the best they can and what they believe to be the best things for the kids. But one teacher is using things that Frank Samuelson told them to do. Another teacher is doing things that Dorothy Potter told them to do. Another person, it's Frank Savo. So what we want to do is put everybody on the same page. And that's what we're doing this year by putting together a staff and operational handbook. How do you grade? How many assignments do you need to have per marking period? Do we take late work? If so, how late? What do we give them? All these things have to be put together and explained to kids and parents. This last week, I found out that we have a minimum grade for a marking period. All right. You could do nothing, get a 45. And I get that the mathematical reasoning for that is you don't want a student sitting in your full year class in January, not able to pass for the year. What are they going to do but be disruptive? They don't have any skin in the game. We have to figure out how to give them some skin in this game. They have to do something. So these are the things that we're starting to find out about and work on.
So, if I hear you correctly that you are abandoning that?
Not this year, but by the end of this year, yes.
I mean, that's.
It's tough to work on the airplane while it's in flight. So we're, but
I didn't know, okay, so it's something that you found out. And
Right.
I totally agree with that, and I had.
right, because we talk about the kids.
Problem with that when it was found out. and-
Right. I totally understand the rationale, and maybe they brought it back for COVID. But if the kids have to do something to earn that partial credit, because, and I know I've written this before, that students learn best when the kids are involved, the families and the school. So if we're taking the student responsibility out, we're removing a huge piece of the puzzle. So these are the management or operational things that we're starting to address. And we're going to codify this so everyone has this in front of them. This is how it works. Here's when your capstone stuff is due. If you don't get it in, you have until this drop dead date. After that, you might be, redoing it. All that, because right now one person do it this way, one person's that way. And Anthony gets involved and said, well, you probably should do it this way. And people are like, what are you, crazy? Yeah. So we need to get that all, all have to be on the same page. And the last thing, which is the major driver for us, is going to be the school schedule. And I've said this before. I know I have a lot of PR to do with a variety of stakeholder groups, but this is going to be a huge element for our culture. The academic culture, and what we do with our students when we get to the actual instructional leadership, which I will admittedly say is not the priority for me this year. We're obviously instructing and we're going into classrooms and we're doing evaluations, but all these other pieces are actually more critical at this piece. So when someone asks, what are you going to do next year? The instructional leadership piece it kicks back in. If you look at the teacher responses, in general, they say they're happy with organization, communication, and relationships. Positive extracurricular activities, parent responses. Well, I said, well, I might as well ask people what they think too. Communication, relationships, positive connections with staff, whether it be classes, the courts, fields, the stage. They see a lot of value in what goes on there. So any questions on the first section, which is just what do people think is going well and kind of how are you going to move this place forward in the future? Excellent. Just like the staff meetings is going well. All right, part two.
I'm saving mine off for that.
No worries. Attendance, our chronic absenteeism is down substantially this year. That's because we have a weekly attendance meeting. We have PPTs for kids that are not in school. We try to make those in person so we can have face-to-face with people. We do house visits with staff, with our social workers, with our SRO to why aren't you in school? What can we do to help? And we do make some referrals to DCF when all of their avenues have been exhausted. So that's good. DNF list has not decreased, it's risen. So I ask people why. They tell me they're increasing their rigor and their expectations coming out of COVID. Totally get that. We also have to look on the back piece, which is, how do we provide supports? Some of these data also might be skewed because it was before the end of the marking period where, when the kids do this massive dump of late work and then the grades can sometimes go up. But, at least we're collecting these numbers, we're looking at them, we're talking about them, and the staff like that. We talked about, the staff come and say, we don't have a chance to really talk about pedagogy or how we do things. We're rearranging some of our afternoon activities to get them in their old fashioned departments to talk about science instruction or English instruction. Still have their larger groups in the afternoon once a month, and they still have our faculty meetings. Our standardized test scores, proof will be in the pudding. I am not sure where we'll end up this year, but I think it's a multi-year process, to be honest with you, of improving.
Now, are those scores for 21, 22?
Fall. This is from last spring. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying that 63% at proficient.
Yeah.
Is it-
College and career readiness, we would call
The
that.
benchmark for college and career readiness. So SAT, the SATs has a cut score for what they consider for you to be college and career ready, okay? Which goes up each year by about 20 points. And it's different for English and math. So it's off the top of my head, like 480 to 530 for seniors to hit that. So that's saying that percent made that, whatever that cut score is, they're on track to be college and ready by the time they graduate.
Okay.
I'd sort of would just kind of ignore all the jargon and say that they're sort of at goal.
Right. Because again, we just get a number. We
Yep.
have no idea what
Yep.
that means.
Yep. Yep. So,
and then it's, again, for your analysis, if you look at 10th grade ELA, that's great, but then when they get 11th, it goes significantly. Is that because it gets harder? It's more challenging?
It's a different group too.
Yes, yeah. So then that's the other way to, what is it, lies and statistics?
I'll teach them how to submit that.
Yeah.
we call it, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Anyhow, I didn't do much with that because we don't have the data to compare it to. So,
Right, yeah, that's fine.
no, okay. The rest of everything else I wrote down here is connected to the district strategic operating plan, which is also connected to our high school improvement plan. So whether, part of it was to develop the schedule, work on an internship program, career pathways, doing the evaluations with Fidelity, which the two of us have been doing. Dorothy evaluates a couple of folks, as does Megan and Linda at the high school. We do the bulk of that. Developing community partnerships, communication, and collegiality. So with that, I'll just open it up to questions. Yes, sir.
So when I look at the increase in Ds and Fs, what is the protocol? I mean, is there a standard protocol of how you notify the student or parent? Because there are times if the parent doesn't know, sometimes, unless they're staring at Power
Right.
School.
So what we've done, and the answer is no. Short answer. What I've done since I've been here is I do send out an email to all the staff at the midpoint, just like I did at the middle school, saying, if you have a student in your classes with a D or F, please contact the parents. Then I email the parents and say, it's the midpoint in the marking period. Check Power School out. What? I do both. Yeah, so I want both sides to talk to each other. I say, hey, parents, check out Power School. If your child is a D or F, contact your teacher, because you have a half of a marking period to try to do something about that. But we also have, my guidance counselors generate the list. You talk to the kids who have Ds and Fs. We talk about, is this a can't or a won't issue? Are you putting in your best effort? And a lot of the kids will be honest with her and say, I really didn't try. And so that's what we talk about, trying to get the kids have some skin in the game. Well, you're going to get a 45, and you're doing pretty well in math. You could figure out, well, if I get an 80 in two marking periods and a 45, I can get a 60 and pass for the year. They figure that out relatively quickly. They are smart kids. Yeah.
But Mr. Kuza, just to also emphasize, that's the work we're doing. Some of the grading practices, need alignments, and all those discussions. And yes, we tell them effective communication, make sure you actually make contact with the parent. So it's definitely some of the work we're still working hard on.
Yep.
But we have implemented some privileges at the high school for all students. Seniors have the most. Those things are going away when you're not doing well academically, extracurriculars, etc. So that all of a sudden, we're going to see what happens next semester. About 80 of them just lost their privileges.
Yeah, I think a part of it also is as we start to evolve our work at the high school of guaranteeing a challenging and engaging and an intentional experience in the classroom, and the teachers certainly can do this. They have been, they've shown me that they can. We talk about tightening up our curriculum. They can't learn something they haven't been taught. So we have to make sure all of our subjects have a guaranteed viable curriculum. And I know Dorothy's working on it and whatnot with people. But again, if I have a brand new teacher who comes into the building, I would love to say, here is the 10th, the chemistry curriculum for college prep kids. It's got all the information you'll need. Obviously, it's not going to tell you to do what you do every single day. It'll give you a scope and sequence, your resources, and blah, blah, blah. And we have that for different spots.
That is one thing that the curriculum committee has really wanted and has really pushed. That's what we want to be able to say, here you are coming into our district. Here's what we expect you to be teaching. Here's your curriculum. And we're working hard, and we look forward to supporting you guys.
Yeah, because that will help my teachers. Even the ones that have been here long term, say this is what I have to make sure this is what I'm going to do, and I can plan. Because if they don't have it, then they're doing this extra work of trying to figure out, okay, what do I have to make sure these kids know so they can be successful on the NGSS in science, or it could be successful on this or that. So I know that there's some work to be done, but again, if we can get it across all the subjects and, vertically from 9 to 12, huge help for the staff. And I know that they would be grateful. And then again, moving forward, providing whole child student supports, creating a high performance school culture. And the last piece, which is sometimes challenging for any school, live by the book, but don't die by it. In other words, we should be making decisions based on principles, LE versus just rules, so there's a reason for why we do things.
I was just gonna say that I'm looking forward to the spring musical, and it's chamber choirs mentioned, concert choir, Voices of Oxford. You have Great Oak Elementary School. We have new advanced courses in art and music and theater. So I would just like to be on the record how proud the BOE is that we do support the arts, and we are just huge supporters of moving the arts forward and providing what we can for the kids. So that's on the record.
And the programs are growing, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it. The positive comments from the staff and the parents was great, because oftentimes we just hear the negative comments. So thank you for including that. I loved it. Great job on absenteeism. I mean, that was one of your goals, and I think it gets, just think of all the work that Sylvia and Ellen are doing. So then that might put your hands up. So that, maybe you won't even have an absentee problem by the time they get there. And to reiterate, and we talked about before, but I love your career and internship ideas. I just feel like you guys have everything going in, putting it together and going in such a positive direction. And you probably don't feel like it, but if you think from September to now, the strides that you've made and what you've done is just amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's because you have a fantastic staff. The kids are great, but it's because of you too. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it does go to the kids and the staff.
The Frisbee Club has an awful lot of money. And is there any interest in, are the kids interested in, I know it got cut because there was no interest, I thought. But we were told there was no interest. I don't know if that's true. So can you just find out, or if not, then find somebody. If we're not going to reinstate the Frisbee Club, then over $3,000 is going to be sitting in that Frisbee line, and I'm not sure. I guess you would work with Robert and Mark on where to distribute it or something. So that was just something that stood out to me.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to. We'll find out who was the advisor in the past, see what we could do with that. And
was it?
It was, Jen.
Okay.
You're right.
So and if there's interest, bring it back. And they've got money. I remember they were begging for money for shirts a few years ago, but now they think there's plenty of money for shirts. So that was just my explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a go ahead? I can't hear you. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, Vic, when we were doing the work on our schedule, I surveyed the parents, kids, and parents about homework. Is the load manageable? And I think part of the reason that the staff was, at least the committee was interested in moving to the block schedule, is that you can focus on half the amount of classes a night for your homework. And I have a we call it a Google format asking for teachers who are interested in joining a committee to put a lot of this work together for our handbook and our operational handbook. And homework is on there. And what's the point of homework? If you give it, do you score it? Do we have a commonly acceptable amount of, what percentage of the overall grade should homework be? At the middle school, we used to say, listen, when I first got there, some people had like 80% of the grade was homework 2 versus 5. It's all over the place, so, if you basically, my feeling is if you're going to give an assignment, you want to go over in some way. You want to give feedback to the kids, whether it be in a grade or in some sort of comment, and it has to be done in a timely fashion because they typically are formative in nature, and they're going to, the information is going to be built upon in the unit and probably tested upon at some point. Yeah, homework, useful homework, what's the point of it? Do we grade it? All that is something that we're kicking around at the high school as part of our improvement process.
Yeah, because I think that's very important across the board, because it's got to be tied into the whole program. Am I doing homework for the next class? Or,
Right.
and it's got to be corrected on a timely basis, because otherwise, like anybody, you go, not going to worry about it, so
Yep.
I think it's a good objective and goal that we're working on. Thank you.
If I could piggyback off Vic's, I've seen it, in Oxford, some classes, the homework's more important than the test. So you can do all of your homework, fail all of your tests, and end with a high B. And then I've seen stuff where, your homework accounts for like 1% or 2% of your grade.
Mhm.
Students figure that out also very quickly, and they just don't do any homework. And they could still, as long as you pass your test in that scenario, you also can get a high B or even an A. And it'd be nice to see some balance, because I know, I have twins, so when I'd see them go through the school and they'd be going down separate classes, but in like parallel, they'd get a different experience where one is buried with homework and the other one's like, homework is for special projects or what you don't complete in school. And so they get, educated in the same type of classes, and you'd be like, you're getting a very different experience
Right.
going through.
So to respond to that, I think going back to that first, the infographic here of the management of the school, that the teachers are doing a great job of just putting their classes together the way that they have been trained to do by whatever principal they came in with. So we just want to create some uniformity, and not lockstep and barrel. Everything has to be exactly the same. But the kids are having a similar experience, having similar opportunities, having similar chances to earn grades. That's what putting the staff together to come up with these things with us to guide them is important. If I don't have them as a part of my process, they won't buy into it. But also I need them, because what kind of homework do you give in science may be different than social studies. But again, what is the purpose of doing it? We talk about the concept of a flipped classroom, which is you may have the kids do some research or reading prior to a lesson, and then you do something with it in the class rather than the teacher kind of direct instruction that information that they're reading something and then coming in and doing something in class. So there's opportunities for, I guess, when we put this together, you get this general uniformity with opportunities for teachers to meet the specific needs of the kids in their classes. But again, 5% versus 70%, we need to get a handle on that. And I don't think anybody in the school would say, no, they don't. I think the teachers agree to that.
One of the activities we did, or they will continue to do, of course, so I'm absolutely going to go through. But was a grade analysis for each teacher, so they can start to understand too. You can get very insular in your own grade book, and then you see the bigger picture. And yes, things are different in drilling math and world language more often than you would in, say, social studies or English class. So this process of understanding why we assign what we assign, how much it's worth, how it impacts the student's overall grade, getting homework done on time, timeliness, all those things are, really starting to come to the forefront. So we're building them all along.
Yeah, and I certainly see these issues not as teacher issues, but as administrative issues. That just the guidance. No, not trying to say anything bad about anybody in the past, but just they need to have some of these directives coming from us. Yeah.
I just was curious, finger on the pulse type of thing. How are the new teachers or new staff that we brought in this past year? They've been bringing fresh ideas to the table, contributing, and
Yep.
Great.
I didn't I sort of hired them from the district office, but I wasn't a part of the earlier process. I've been happy with them, and I talked to them. One of the new teachers in math, Jenna Broadmet, for example, has played a significant leadership role in the schedule committee. She came from Woodland High School, which had a block schedule. She was very clear about what the benefits were and the negatives, when we had conversations. Very, very, very good. We have a couple of great hires. One of our new social worker, Rohina Farron, is excellent. And one of the things that they need, I think, and I don't think anybody in the district would disagree, is a better onboarding process for folks, whether it be at the individual schools or the district. And we do have like new teacher orientation in these things, but sometimes I'll get somebody and it's like, well, what do I do with you? I'm not, what caseload are we going to do and this and that. And so that might help. But, ask, are you doing well? Do you like it here? Are we treating you well? Do you feel like your voice is being heard? Any questions? And in general, I can't think of any new person that I've had that is not happy to be there, including a new chemistry physics teacher who's hitting the ground running. She's she has some rigor, so not everybody's thrilled with that, but I like that, she's pushing the kids. So that's a good thing. Good.
Anything else from this side of the table? Deb?
Yep, I just have one. My usual on the activity report, the classes.
You and I love that.
I know that there was a plan to spend down the class,
Yeah.
but it still seems to be kind of high. And if there's a creation of a plan.
We have a plan. We've been having trouble with vendors. The main items that we're looking for is replacing the flags going up the hill. We had everything set to purchase in December, and the vendors like, listen, we're not, because it's a custom order, we won't do it unless you pay us up front. It's not the way we do business.
Right.
So we've reached out to other vendors to get quotes. We have a quote now from a supplier, and then we're looking at the quality of the fabrics, and it's like, I don't know if this will hold up. So they're supposed to come. So this slows the whole process down because we don't know how much that's going to be as we jump from vendor to vendor, because once we buy that, then we can get the picnic tables and we can do the beds and this and that with the remainder. So we have a process, and I know Mark hounds me, and he's good about it. Hey, they need another report, and he texts me at night and I'm trying to go to sleep. And but I get it. I know that we do, but I promise you, we have a process. It's just very difficult right now, just getting somebody to take our money.
I think my thing is, so we have class of 2023 that's going to be leaving us. So just as long as we have a plan of what they're, before they leave, what they want done with any balances. So there's no misunderstanding, and we're doing, right. I mean, some of the prior classes had left money for scholarships and things like that.
Right.
But I just want to make sure that we have a plan moving forward.
I might be able to put you in touch with a vendor too. So.
That'd be helpful.
I'm sorry, Joe.
I might be able to put you in touch with a vendor too. So.
Perfect.
That'd be great.
Anybody else from this side of the table? Any questions for the high school? No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, and here, this is my assignment. I did this for you. I hope
Thank
you
you.
have a good day.
She made a smiley face on it.
Mark, can you pass out the book so I'm getting set up? Yep.
Okay, so where are we now? OMS yearbook MOU. Oh, right.
Nope.
No. I'm sorry. I'm
Budget.
jumping. We're at
Yeah, they're
the
down here. Sorry.
operating and capital budgets.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me one moment as I get set up here.
I was jumping.
You were jumping as well.
Oh, I took it on instead of off. Always off. You know what? The other thing is, we should hand from year to year, we should hand them back in. I mean, I throw these out every year.
I keep mine.
So I'll give it to you. I don't have anyone to give it to. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay. So good evening.
As Mark is passing out the budget book, the concept of a three-ring binder is as we go through the process over the next month or beyond, as there's questions and changes to the budget, if we need to change page 5, we can reprint page 5 and give you new page 5 without printing the entire booklet all over again. So I'm going to walk you through a summary. I know that we had our budget workshop last Thursday night when we had all of our principals and directors that walked you through all the cost centers. I want to kind of summarize where we are right now and the major themes to the budget and just spend a few minutes, open up to any questions and any feedback on the budget initially, and then we'll have a general discussion if there is one. So in our view, there are three main goals in the budget for this year. The first is to improve, instruction. There we go. By maintaining class size, by looking at ways that we can improve academics in the classroom, behavioral supports in the classrooms, and professional learning. So how do we improve classroom instruction across the board, K-12, pre-K to 12? And the second is really aligned to the strategic operating plan, which is how to increase the academic and extracurricular offerings for students, both during the course of the school day and after school. What are the ways that we can enhance offerings for students? And the third is through communication, being transparent in the budget process and being as fiscally responsible as possible through being good stewards of the budget for both within the operating fund, but also the capital. And we're going to show to the community that we're good fiscal responsible stewards of the resources that were provided here. I carried forth the vision of the budget, which was last year, same as this year, which is smart budgeting, to excel tomorrow, to succeed in the future, basically aligning some budgetary goals with the vision of the district. Since I have been here, we have made a concerted effort to be zero-based, which is requiring that every cost center be built from the ground up, which is if you have a request in a particular account, don't just put $3,000 because you had $3,000 last year. Why do you want the $3,000? You need to justify your request. And as we went through the process, we listened to the rationale of each principal and each director. We walked through every single account, had them justify in front of us. And when I say us, it's the cabinet. It was Mark, it was myself, it was Megan. We listened to every single explanation and we asked critical questions. Some stuff was requested that we did not bring forward. Some stuff we moved to this year, and some stuff we said, we want you to go back and get more information for. But it went through a very critical analysis with every single cost center to make sure that what we got to the budget for you tonight is something that we feel should be in the budget for next year. And in the process, we did a lot of work over the last 3 years, but even over the last 6 months on even being more effective fiscal stewards of the resources. We spoke about insurance the other night and moving our insurance carrier, but at the same time keeping the plan design. It was a multi-month process of working with the various associations and getting to a final deal. We would have saved even more money had we moved earlier in the year, but it was a process that we had to go through. But in the net result was a savings exceeding in this year's budget $500,000. Now, if you think of us lowering that footprint for this year, when you add in an 8% increase to that, there's a big delta that we're saving in next year's budget because we saved so much this year. Same thing with salaries. When staff left, we made a concerted effort across the board to tell the principals and the directors, if you're hiring somebody, you need to be hiring somebody at a salary at or lower to the person that just departed. Now, in some cases, physics, special education, chemistry, you don't have a choice. You have to hire people that are in front of you because there's such a shortage area. But in the case with a paraprofessional that leaves, naturally, when the person leaves at a higher step, the person is coming in step one. Through all of that, we were able to have a net savings over $600,000. Once again, before you add in step increases and percent increases for salaries, there is a natural decrease in the budget before you add in the percent increase. So altogether, through that good fiscal responsibility this year, we had a budget savings over $1 million. So that lowered the percent increase for next year because we're such effective steward to the resources this year. And I think it's important to really capitalize and hone in that message that effective budget management this year puts us in a good position for next year and beyond. And then from a technology standpoint, our team, Alex and Jim, are always coming back to us with ways that we could be more efficient with the resources. An example is the phone system of cutting over the phones over at Quaker Farms and moving those over to the newer technology is actually going to save money, cutting out older phone lines. Digitizing records this year. There'll be a footprint of initial outcome of expenses to start the project this year, but the end result will be a system that allows us to maintain and search records in a much more efficient way for the staff moving forward and use less space from a physical and architect standpoint of the building. So all that are just examples of how it's important to always have the eye on how we can do our work more efficiently and financially responsible in all areas across the district. When I looked at really conceptualizing, is there a theme to the budget itself? And I want to move this up. Really, we're reinvesting in student-centered budgeting. The reason why we're here is for the students. So really making sure that all the initiatives that you see in front of you, all the enhancements to the budget, are going back to how does it improve teaching and learning for students. So we look at the various different enhancements to the budgets. First, I put down in the interns. We're seeing a tremendous, and I made a significant impact when we are pulling SRBI interventionists, coaches, and tutors, and in some cases paraprofessionals away from students. When they're providing direct services to those students, they're not getting SRBI instruction. They're not getting special education services. They're not having a parent in front of them in a classroom. They're not getting coaching in a classroom. All that is taking away the ability for us to interact and support students that are the neediest students across the district. So providing interns will help safeguard and protect the services that students need. It will also put into classrooms teachers that are being trained to be teachers, as opposed to somebody that might not have any experience working in front of students. So it gives us higher capacity people to sub in classrooms. Our principals spend hours on the weekend, hours every day, jigsawing staff who can cover classrooms. If they have somebody that's in a building on a daily basis, they know they can count on that. So now we've got principals that could work more in instructional leadership. So those interns really do help at the end of the day, help us return to what students need the most, which is people working with them as educators. 2 is BCBA. I think you've heard from teachers. I've heard from teachers loud and clear that student behavior is impacting the ability for them to learn. We are seeing students being dysregulated. Some of that is from a special education perspective, disabilities that students are working through. Some of it is just returning from the pandemic. The executive functioning skills are not there. It's impacting the ability to be well-behaved in classrooms. By adding a second BCBA, we've got 1 BCBA in the district. That BCBA can work with students directly. It can come up with ways that in special education that will put plans in place to help put them in a position for them to be well-behaved in the classroom settings that they're in. But that person can also work with classroom teachers on ways to be more proactive, to establish classroom routines and procedures in the classrooms, so that students in all areas, whether in regular education 504 or special education, can have strategies to help them achieve the goals that they need. And when you look at behavior in a very holistic way across all areas, now we have less interactions for all the students in the classrooms. There's less interactions in the classrooms, and teachers can focus on instruction that, once again, is going to help students learn across the board in the classroom. The third area is adding a librarian to the middle school. We know that we cut the librarian out of the budget a few years ago for various different reasons. A librarian, that research shows, supports literacy instruction in the school. It supports digital literacy. It supports information literacy. And it also provides access to students to have another special at the middle school. So we're engaging, if we're going back to the strategic operating plan, we're creating more opportunities for students to learn more academic and extracurricular content in the school through the library itself. We have a brand new library at the middle school that's underutilized because we don't have somebody that's managing that facility. So we're requesting a librarian that really can focus on information literacy, digital literacy, literacy in the building, and help with that rotation of providing more classes for students to learn in that school. The fourth is stipends. This is both from an extracurricular standpoint and from a leadership standpoint. Going back to the comment that Stephanie made earlier in the evening, we want to support the arts. Up to this point, the middle school musical, the high school musical, the high school fall play have all been funded 100% through the revenue of past performances. That's great if you have a high performing performance the year before you've brought in the money. But if you had a less income the previous year, now you have less money in the bank to then pay for the rights of the musical or the play, for the supplies, and for the stipends to the people that are going to run it. We're saying let the revenue pay for the licenses and the supplies. Let's safeguard the stipends in the budget. Let's support the arts by actually budgeting into our operating fund the stipends needed to support the musical for the high school, musical for the middle school, and the fall play for the high school within the operating budget itself. So from an extracurricular standpoint, that enhances the programs that our students have access to and reinvests and supports and aligns to what the strategic operating plan is calling for, which is more enhanced opportunities for students across the board. And then the middle school is changing the middle school schedule. We voted on that earlier in the month. Part of that model is developing PLCs or professional learning communities within the school. And what Sylvia and Ellen would like to do is to assign a team leader for each team to be the leaders in that team and shifting the stipends rather than a content area, but to a team leader that has a leadership role within that team. So we want to alter some of the stipends that are there and then add to the existing ones so that we end up with a team leader in each team that can be that leader and be a part of the leadership core of that building. And the fourth is professional learning. I think you've heard feedback from teachers in the last few years that professional learning is important, that teachers want to grow. It aligns directly back to the vision of the district that we believe that not only every student needs to grow every day, but every staff member does as well. And we have a second-year math curriculum that we need to continue providing high-quality professional learning for teachers. We also have a brand new state required mandated literacy initiative K3. We view this as an initiative, not just K3, but a K5, and also an initiative that expands out to the middle school and high school, which means that if we're going to align to what the state's asking us to do, we need to double down and invest on the professional learning that teachers need on the science of reading. So we have professional learning money in there to support what teachers need in that professional learning area. All these initiatives have one theme in mind, and that comes back to what's best for students in the classroom. Bring you back to the budget itself. My recommended budget that we presented to you last night, when it's all put together, is a 4.65% budget. I believe this is a fiscally responsible budget. We have spent the last few years to trim around the edges. There's not much left to trim. I commend the board finance committee for the last 2 years for really digging down and ask the critical questions and helping us get down to a really sound budget, which means if we take anything out at this point, we really will start looking at programs and staff, and that's the hard part at this point. So I believe that this is a responsible budget at the 4.65 and allows us to continue moving the district forward and add in those enhancements that we just spoke about that align to improving student learning. Now, we do know that last week, the first selectman request that we add back into the budget lawn maintenance and ground maintenance for all 4 schools for next year. We have some concepts to bring this number down slightly. We still have some more research that we need to do behind that, which could potentially look at hiring an individual or an individual and a half to actually maintain the property and purchase the equipment and maintain all the lawn cutting ourselves, and not actually hire a company to do so. That could potentially lower the cost from this. But if we were to add in a full $300,000 to the budget today, that would be a 5.56% budget. What I would urge the board to do is to approve a 4.46 budget, a 4.56 budget, which is 4.65 budget, which is what we're recommending, and allow the Board of Finance to then approve our budget, then add in the money back in for the $300,000 and transfer it from the one line over in the town to another. But that's something that this board is going to need to reconcile what the best political move is to reconcile where these funds should come from and the number that you want to vote on in the end of February. Which brings us to the next steps in the process, which is the board finance committee will take directive from this full board on the questions and the direction that you want to go in terms of how you want to see the final number to be at the end of February. That means that we're going to have a minimum of one or more finance committee meetings between now and February 28th. The first meeting in February 14th, will be an opportunity for the board to once again ask questions and get answers from either myself or any of our administrators on the budget. And it'll be an opportunity for the board finance committee to come back with answers as a committee as well. And the target is on the February 28th, the board as a whole would vote on the budget. And my hope would be to approve a 4.65% budget. But if there's reductions, you'd vote on the budget that you think that needs to be reduced to. Which then leads to the key questions. Is there anything that we're missing from the budget you think that we need to add? Because sometimes the superintendent brings forward a budget and you say, wait a second, you forgot to add that. That brings the question, is there something that we added that you think that we should take away? That we need to say, maybe we don't need to do that. And then we need to reconcile how do we handle the lawn care and ground maintenance? What's the direction we want to go with that? And then there's a lot here. And how do we communicate this most effectively with our stakeholders? Our stakeholders are our staff, but it's also our parents, and it's also board members in the other boards in the town. And it's also people that live in this community that don't have kids in the school district. So there's various different stakeholders that we need to provide information to. And when do we present and then how we present along the way needs to be asked. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes with re-summarizing where we're at the budget. There are some superintendents who will spend an hour plus going over a budget presentation. That's not my style. My style is to give you a lot of information in the budget booklet, give you opportunities to read it, review, reflect on it, and come back with questions either tonight or future meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Nice job. Anybody have any questions at this point?
I just have a comment. Sure. I so appreciate the account definitions in the budget book.
I couldn't hear you.
The account definitions. She
Oh, good.
appreciates it.
Appreciate that,
Okay.
because I think, as you sit on the finance subcommittee, you get it, but I think for everybody, it's a good way, and even for the Board of Finance to go back and figure out where we are with things, so I appreciate that piece of it.
Yeah, so now we take this budget and then we workshop it in our subcommittee and then even our budget workshops. And we haven't set up budget committees, have we, Mike? Maybe.
I don't think we have one scheduled for February, except the regular one that's, I think it's,
February 14th.
Yeah.
Bill will be very happy that I'm busy on February 14th and he doesn't have to worry about it. So yeah. That's fine.
I just wanted to make a comment. I can't, it's great. The presentation, the numbers, everything in the booklet it's like night and day from when I first got on this board, and you guys on the subcommittee for budget did a tremendous job. The meeting we had the other day, last week, that my only concern is that we have had so many good efficiencies put in this year. I do not want the finance board to walk away and say, well, we gave you too much money, because I kind of got in that field from that meeting. And, listen, our job is to find efficiencies and work to due diligence and keeping down the request that we put in for a percentage as the paramount point for, I think, like the superintendent said, all stakeholders, and to balance that out. But we are here for the kids. And I again, I'm going to go on record and saying, I think that the budget we put forward again was responsible, and it's a correct number. There's no fat in this budget. And unfortunately, we have a couple stumbling blocks possibly coming up. We'll deal with it. And, it is what it is. So, but everybody did a great job with that thing. It looks great. So.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else? Comments?
As we conclude this, I do want to special thank you to Mark for all the work that he did. I even came in, I think it was Martin Luther King weekend. I came in over the weekend for some stuff, and I like, why are the doors open? And he's sitting in his office working. Like, what are you doing here today? The offices are closed, and he's in here working on the budget. So I want to thank you for all the hours you spent putting it together.
And Mark has been great. We've known him every question.
It's like, wow, you guys look at every line item.
He's never once said, why are you
Nope.
asking?
No.
He's always great about
Excellent.
answering our questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, Robert. Nice job.
Thank you.
So next we are on the capital improvement. No,
The
I keep
capital-
skipping. You know what?
We're
I
still on
didn't
the,
print it. Now we're on OMS
no, actually, we're still in the capital
Oh.
budget.
capital budget.
So I'm not going to spend much time on this. The town requires that we submit to them a capital improvement plan this week. What I did, it's in the budget booklet there. It's on the budget board docs. I took this current plan for this current fiscal year, which there was only two items funded, the pool and the playground. I took them off and I renumbered the years and moved everything forward a year. So that basically is the plan you see in front of you there.
Got no funding.
Yeah,
And that was the directive you gave me at the last meeting.
absolutely. Thank you.
So by protocol, you probably, you technically should vote on the capital improvement plan this evening so I can submit it to the town.
Sure. And do we make a motion at this point to accept your budget as a board?
The capital budget,
Just the capital?
the capital.
Okay.
Yes, I would love for you to vote the board, the operating budget tonight as well, but you.
Oh, I didn't know if we accepted that and then worked on it and then sent it
No.
sent it to the town.
Motion to approve the capital plan as presented by the superintendent.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Okay, so we don't need to do that. So Deb, I believe I'm on 7. Is that correct?
You are on
7A,
Yeah.
right?
7A.
OMS yearbook.
Yeah, so
MOU.
to make a long story short, when we did the MOU for the stipends this summer, we were $1,000 off for the middle school yearbook. We had increased it last year through an MOU.
Clerical error.
It was a clerical error in the MOU. However, in the advertisement to the teachers, we had advertised it with what the amount was supposed to be. So we awarded it in one amount, but the MOU stayed another. So I can't pay the teacher until we do a follow-up MOU to change the amount of the stipend to what it's supposed to be. So I'm asking for the board to authorize Stephanie to sign an MOU for me to correct the yearbook stipend.
Motion to approve the board chair to sign the amended OMS yearbook MOU.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Okay.
And we just voted on the capital plan, so we just.
Right, so we're good. Do you have anything further to report, Robert?
I'll be quick. I've got two items. One, once again, I want to congratulate the teachers of Great Oak and Quaker Farms for leading the students up to a point where we had a School of Distinction awarded by the state. I was very happy to see that the press release that we sent out was actually taken by the Waterbury Republican. There was an article printed about a week and a half ago. There was in Voices this past week, a small article on like page 7 or 8 is there, but at least they printed the article. What I'd love to do is to find an evening like we do with athletics, where we invite staff from the school here to publicly recognize them for the hard work that they did and celebrate them, and purchase a plaque that would go in the school, recognizing school distinction. So I want to work with the administration to see what board meeting would be a good night for them to come. Next meeting is February 14th. I don't want to drag them out on Valentine's Day, so maybe
We're going to be here.
you're going to be here. I don't know if they want to come.
That's true.
Yeah, so we'll find an evening that works and we'll celebrate them at the beginning of the board
Yeah.
meeting.
And I also will say, as board chair, it's a kudos to you as well, that you're in charge of this district and under your guidance, the school is a school of distinction. So it's as well an honor for you as
Well, thank you. And second, this is something that is aligned to the SOP, which is providing more opportunities for students, especially on extracurricular basis, and something that Stephanie and I started working in the fall, which is looking to see how we can expand an after-school program, especially for middle school students, so not sitting at home doing things that they should not be engaged in, and they're more productive from all sorts of areas. So I'm excited that we are getting ready to sign an MOU with the Boys and Girls Club. We're expecting the program to start sometime in March. They currently are searching for a director for the program. There's an MOU that I'm reviewing right now that Steph and I are looking at, and a press release that will go out in a few days from them. They're looking for a quote from me in there. and it'll publicize, and it'll allow students to focus on academic support. There'll be character education, there'll be athletics, there'll be STEM stuff, there'll be arts in there. So it's going to be well-rounded for program for students after school, from when school dismissal till around 6 o'clock in the evening. We'll jigsaw the use of the building with the other uses of the other programs in the building, but I'm excited about this. I want to thank Stephanie for partnering with me on getting this going. This really deeply aligns to the SOP of what we're trying to get accomplished for our students. So
Yeah.
it's exciting.
And I'll piggyback because that was basically my report, so I won't say it in my report, but yeah, I'm thrilled. I mean, the Boys and Girls Club is, you know, they have national presence, and the programs are vetted, and they're geared toward middle school students. So it's not, you know, a retrofit, like, you know, just, oh, we're just going to do crafts. I mean, they truly have wonderful prescribed vetted programs, and it's such a great organization. I'm so excited to bring them to Oxford, and really for the betterment of these kids. And so, yes, I'm very excited as well. So I just did my report too.
There we go. We're done.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you both for
Okay.
working so hard on that.
Yeah.
Bringing it to the kids. I think
Getting
it's
it
gonna
done,
be
you know,
good.
we've been talking about it for a long time, but
Yes.
now we're at it's getting done stage. And Mike, did you want to say?
Just a quick question. Is
Sure.
this for Oxford students or is this for the area students?
Oxford.
That's
Oh,
Oxford.
Well, it would be Oxford students. I don't, we haven't even, I guess we haven't considered, you mean like if a kid goes to private school?
No, I meant like,
I
you know,
don't think it
like if
was
they were
Seymour.
in the area, let's say Seymour.
I don't.
We haven't talked about that. We were aligning to middle school because the students would stay right at the school from there. I'm assuming if once the program is going, if there's room for
I
students to
wasn't
be
seeking
added,
it. I just wasn't
Yeah, no,
sure
but
if
it's
this
a-
was.
it's something to consider.
it's something to consider.
Yeah.
Something
And I
to
think we
consider.
also- I'm sorry.
And the other component to this that we're looking to see expanded is opportunities for high school students to engage in volunteering some of their time to help run the program as well, to get more experiences for high school students.
Yeah, so it'll evolve, and
That's a good
that's
idea.
good question to ask. Shay is the director of Boys and Girls Club. I'm not sure, you know, obviously they're in a lot of schools in the valley. I'm not sure if they take other.
I just wasn't sure if that was like
Yeah,
thought of or
No,
if that was.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. We haven't spoken about that. However, we are looking for creative ways to partner with other school districts. We've met with Seymour for a couple of different things now. So if there's ways, once we get this up off the ground, to partner with them, maybe this is something that is something that we're able to see how we could dovetail together and provide a program that maybe some of their students, they have a bus or something that comes to us and they drop students off, something to explore.
Any other questions or comments? Is that it for you, Robert?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's mine as well. So we can go into the subcommittee reports. Facilities, we just had a meeting. And
So-
Joe has already posted his notes, so I want to give kudos to Joe for being right on that.
Everything's up to speed. Yeah, no, we met tonight. We just discussed the capital improvement plan. We talked about this central office being here with the long-term goal of getting out of here and turning this building over to the town. And there's going to be a bunch of different options explored. We're also, there's no word on the HVAC or the Great Oak Elementary School project at this point. Basically, a lot of towns put in for money and they're not sure who's getting it. So, and we already talked about, we're exploring the field maintenance and ground maintenance issue. So there'll be some updates on that to follow. So, but yeah, the big one is, you know, long-term plans to get out of here and where possibly, how we can address a short-term need with a long-term goal. So.
Do we need to worry budget, this current budget to add anything, or we really don't have much in there to, if we're doing any movement or?
It comes down to expense as far as what it costs to keep this building up and running. So that's all being looked at right now. So
And did you want Mike to go over some list of some of the? Yeah.
some of the options we discussed was purchasing a building that's down the road, renting back Tommy Case Plaza, but right now it's at a premium price, which it would be more money than we were previously rented for. Looking at a few different schools up in the campus area and possibly come up with a migration plan of getting there after a couple of years of money we would put toward either rental or purchasing would go toward the long-term renovation of getting into that type of scenario. So those are the type of options we're looking at right now. So.
Did you want to have Mike just go over some of the things that our aging buildings are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Floor's yours, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
Yep. So at our
You know what, he said that he feels like the staff has been there all along. I feel like he's been there.
Yeah.
You're doing such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes. I couldn't imagine not having Mike next to me at this point. He has proved so invaluable in just a short period of time. So, yeah. Yeah.
So I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to be an employee of the district about 2 months now. So some of the things that I've dealt with for the last month, and OMS, we have the water. OMS, we also had a severe boiler imbalance. Just to give you guys an understanding of what that means. There are 3 boilers in fire sequence, so that you never have, if you have one, never have. Pressure were off the chart. They were off the charts. That puts stress on the system. And there are pressure fittings throughout the pressure state. Each to be somewhere. So what we found out was that there was a glycol reservoir that was in the lawn. And it's a low level. Glycol is sort of, there are toxic, there's a toxic version. Non-toxic version. It gets mixed into the water at a certain ratio. So that they don't hurt. So there's 3 reservoirs. The middle reservoir was in the lawn, which is an audio alarm and a visual red light blinking. Somewhere prior to me working there.
Oh, no.
Is that why we had the pipe burst?
The light bulb mixture was wrong. And a lot of water. So while any machinery is at that kind of pressure is running extremely far. Very, very, we got that back now. So now we go into the that was, I think that was crucial. Define a couple of groups that have leaks, ceiling, pressure fitting, so it's like at OHS, we had groundwork issue. Build a long driveway, on the right hand side of the building. There was well, sewer pipes there, drainage pipes. Flow, groundwork, owing to the driveway. 4 inches. We had a very small group of care here in this building. In this building, all of it is not. Here.
Wow,
So
that's great.
Found doing 2 boilers, 1 boiler was down and not working. So we had 1 boiler running 1,000 miles an hour. And in a normal state. QFS and Quaker Farms, again, there was a boiler that went down prior to the school year, wasn't cleaned and it went into alarm. So it's never been cleaned. Still an alarm. So we have two boilers at QFS, so one has been working this entire time. So again, the danger there is that it doesn't fail and you don't have school. So we move that as well. Try and get it back up.
Mike, should we have a regular schedule of, I mean, I know we do that at our house, you know, we have it cleaned. Okay,
There's a regular schedule.
okay, thank you.
At QFS, there's also what's called the EMS or computer program to see how things are doing. And it allows people to do it for that system. Buy an outside vendor and have the system run properly. Probably from my understanding, changes were made. Made to the system settings. What I understand from the vendor, change multiple variables at once. So no idea which variable to use. No way of backtracking. So that, my understanding, that's all.
Oh, out of sync.
All out of sync. Trying to retrace it. But I'm working with our IT person, Jim. Bob, all things.
Does the lead custodian at that school need to be trained, or will it be, you know, you guys figure it out and then you train the custodian?
I'm incorrect in my belief.
Okay.
My recommendation, but all custodians should be trained.
Yeah.
They should know their buildings better. They should be subject matter experts on their buildings better than. So, an example of middle school.
We knew what you meant.
Got into the
Sync,
normal range.
yes.
I spent a bit of time with the lead custodian, showing her what to look for, why to look. I didn't know what was understanding she had, so I was very rudimentary, and I worked my way up, showing her what the system was, explaining. I will tell you that we had another like call warning go on from a different one because one day sure it's on normal process. Know it. Identify it. Call me. They will read it. So they will.
Can I ask a quick question on the QFS system? Is there any idea how long that has not been working correctly?
At some point, I think at some point early last year is when we got everything configured. We spent a lot of money to have it all configured in the way that it's supposed to be
And it was changed some.
after that point. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
I only know.
What you know, you know. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Opening that should have it. That has not been corrected.
You can see he's been busy, but how his prior expertise in this area has really helped us move this district forward in some critical areas, because if we don't have operational facilities, our students students can't learn and teachers can't teach. So thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Mike? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great job.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Curriculum, our meeting was canceled on Monday. Despite the weather, it was canceled because we did not receive the information that our committee requested, and we weren't, I wasn't gonna let us waste our time. I will continue my discussion with Robert as to timeframes, and I assume that we'll have the information for the next curriculum subcommittee meeting, but that's why it was canceled.
Okay. We have a second read for 5 different policies today. Last meeting, I went through and gave you a synopsis of each one. I'll spare you that again, so I'll just dive right into. First one is child abuse, neglect, and sexual assault reporting. Does anybody have any questions or comments? So can I make a motion that we accept the policy as written?
Ask no questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Policy carries.
Next one is food allergies, glycogen storage disease, and diabetes. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, can we make a motion that the policy is accepted as written?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
All right, third policy is physical activity, undirected play, and student discipline. Does anybody have any question, concerns, or comments? All right, can we make a motion to accept the policy as written?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Policy carries.
Next one is section 504 ADA. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or comments? Can we make a motion to accept the policy as written?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Policy carries.
And number 5 is curricular exemptions. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or comments?
I do. I kind of like to see if we could table this for another meeting. I'm just concerned with some of the curricular aspects that are in our health program. So I just would wonder if we could look at that at our curriculum meeting, and then come back to the full board just to make sure. If you look at the curriculum, you'll see some of the concerns. So.
The curriculum that's on our.
Yes, it's still up on the website if anybody wanted to look at it, but I just have some issues. I just want to make sure that we're dotting the i's and crossing the t's first on curriculum first, and then come to the.
That's fine by me.
So do
Motion to table the
Second.
curriculum exemption.
Let her finish.
No,
All
she
those
might.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? Motion is carried to.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
No.
Was the
I don't
second
think
read?
so.
I mean, no.
No.
This is the second one. Okay, no, but thank you for asking. Vic.
Okay. The last policy that we have on the agenda today is parent-teacher communications, and I would like to have that tabled until we can get some clarification from council on how we should proceed on that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay, motion carries. So the curricular and the parent-teacher communication will come back in the next.
Very good.
All right, thanks so much, Nicole, and your committee. Mike, finance, you what to say?
Enjoy the book. There's a lot of reading and, pull out your calculator. I just want to say thank you. It is I get praise for being on the subcommittee and, but Dr. Miller leads the charge. He produces excellent work. Every year it gets better. And Mark's doing a phenomenal job, and every step of the way, it just evolves and just keeps improving. So I just want to say thank you. That's pretty much my update.
Yeah, and also not to diminish the hours and the time that goes into it between, the subcommittee and what you and everything else. I mean, people don't really realize that, but you
It never ends.
No. Throw big parties, you put the things up, yeah. Right. So thanks, Mike. Are there any liaison reports?
We were here are doing our budget meeting for the last PTO meeting, but they are doing their boost program, which is like they're gonna have the kids doing kind of like what they do with Jump Rope for Heart, but it's to raise money for PTO. So hopefully everybody will get involved in that. It's a huge undertaking. There's PBIS, there's a component to it. So it's a great thing for the kids as well. So hopefully the community will get behind it.
And the other thing that I like about it, which you can tell Amanda, is that there needs to be finally, there's something that the kids have to do. So they're going to, and then they're also going to be rewarded. There's going to be, prizes and parties and, all this other stuff, but I don't know if they're walking or running, but they're actually doing something. And, it's just, pet peeve of mine that, now the world is, you need money, go fund, and then you just click. I think they're learning a valuable lesson as well in that, they're doing this altruistically to help all the students. So I can't thank Amanda.
The community's been great about donating gift certificates and things throughout. So thank you, community, that behind it too.
And oftentimes fundraisers or individual clubs or sports, the students are engaged in a full school-wide community building activity, which also is a very rewarding experience for the students to participate in. Yeah.
So nothing else, Robert, you don't have anything else for liaisons? So without further ado, I make a motion at 8:22 to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstained, motion carries. Have a good